Hey everyone, here I am back again with another small video for critical thinking. This is for week 3. Um, so over the course of the last couple of weeks, we have looked at, kind of what critical thinking is and looked at the scientific method as an example of using critical thinking, as an example of inductive reasoning, although we'll talk more about inductive reasoning later in the class. We've learned a little bit more about argument, and we've examined sort of the different kind of support we can give for an argument, sort of this idea of whether it is fact or opinion or bias. In this week, we're going to look a little further into how do we, kind of organize those reasons in the week's journal, where you'll spend a little time with is something a fact, an inference, or an assumption. And I've linked a little article for you to read to help you understand those different kinds of approaches to analyzing the information contained within an argument. But most of what we are looking at this week is how do we craft argument so that what we are saying or writing can be clearly understood by the people who are reading or hearing it. So this week in your reading, in chapter 2 of Levin's book, you're going to be looking at how does the context of a statement help shape how it is understood. You're going to be looking at sort of clarity and simplicity. How do we directly say what we mean? We're going to look at ambiguous wording, and we'll dig into this in the discussion a little bit. Sometimes we think that we are saying something that is clear, but it is heard as ambiguous by our reader. So you get a chance to practice this one a little bit. We're also going to look at semantics, which is like the meaning carried by words, why we choose the word that we want. If you are given a set of different words that could all mean the same thing in an argument, which word would be best to use? What sort of connotation does that word carry? We're also going to be looking at syntax, like how we arrange the words within a statement so that they give the most meaning. And, syntax is one of those things that are particular to different languages, right? So if you grew up speaking English, as is the case for probably the majority of folks in this classroom, but probably not everybody, right? You sort of internalize the way we organize English words into a sentence just from hearing and kind of soaking that up from people using English around you. If you were to move somewhere else where a different language is spoken, over time, you would begin to internalize that syntax as well. But if you're learning this for a language that is not your first language, that wasn't spoken by all the people around you when you were small, this can be really hard to learn. So, and here's an example that maybe will help you understand this. In English, syntax in a sentence usually goes noun, verb, direct object. So for instance, like the thing, right, interacted with the other thing. Faye walked the dog, right? In which Faye is the noun and walked is the verb and the dog is the direct object. But this is not this way in many other languages, right? And an easy way to remember this is if you think about Yoda. Our text uses this example as well, and I think it's a good one. The planet that we come from, Yoda's planet, which we still don't know what it is, syntax is different for Yoda's people and looks more like direct object and then noun and then verb. So instead of saying Faye walked the dog, Yoda might say the dog Faye walked, right? And if you're not used to that particular construction, that sentence is going to be more difficult to understand for a speaker of English than one that is put in the order that we understand it. This is connected to, maybe some of you are old enough to remember diagramming sentences, which, because I'm a giant word nerd, I really loved when I was a kid. but diagramming sentences help us to understand how the different parts of a sentence come together. So anyway, syntax, useful, get things in the right order, and then they are more easily understood. But perhaps the most important thing you're going to look at in this week's reading is this concept of worldview, which is just like, you have probably had the experience of saying something to a friend or a partner or a boss or a family member, which they took entirely the wrong way. And often this is because sort of the underlying beliefs and values, maybe things you soaked up from your family environment, these deep-seated things that we know from our own life experience, were really different between you and the person you were speaking to, right? So maybe everything in your experience shapes your worldview over here, and everything in theirs shapes theirs over here, and there's not much overlap, right? So things that you think for sure are true might not be things that other people think for sure are true. We'll dig into this a little bit in part of the discussion when you take on sort of a challenging topic and think about how your position on it is shaped by your own world view. But often when you're in conflict with somebody, in discussion or in presentation of an argument, it's really important to keep in mind that their worldview may be vastly different from theirs. So they might not just be like totally wrong. It could be that their whole perspective is different and that shapes what they are looking at. Okay, so as always, I try to get these done quickly. That is almost never the case. So spend some time with word definition, why we choose the word that we use, how we put them together, and how all of those things support your argument. And I will look forward to seeing what all of y'all have to say in the discussion and in the journal this week. As always, discussion, your initial post is due Wednesday, no later than midnight, and the other parts of the work for the week, which include responding to any clarifying questions I have asked you, a step that a number of people missed in the first discussion, your peer responses, and your journal are all due Sunday by midnight. Have a great week.